Today we talk about FDM versus Resin printers.
Let's podcast.
Hey guys, hope you all are well. Today I'm joined by Dylan. Dylan, how are you today?
I'm doing good, and you, Wesley?
I'm alright, thanks. Dylan, today we're going to talk about FDM versus Resin printers.
Yes.
So we do have a couple of resin prints in front of us. So for the people that are listening to just the podcast, obviously you guys can't see what we are holding, but for the people who are watching the video on YouTube, you guys can see what's going on. So our podcasts are going to be released on SoundCloud as a podcast, and as well as we are going to release the podcast on YouTube as a video.
All right.
So for you guys that are listening to the podcast now, if you want to see what we are holding and what we are referring to, go check out our YouTube, and you guys can all see it over there. So Dylan, we have some really small resin prints here. I mean, we got this barrel-like robot.
Yeah.
We have another man controlling a robot.
Supposed to be a small little stone thrower.
A stone thrower. That's pretty cool. And then we have, I really like this. This is a dragon wrapped around
Like a crystal
some crystals.
structure,
This is really cool. So Dylan, tell me, let's just talk, man. Why resin printer?
The detail level you receive from it. You won't do this with a standard FDM printer. Like, if you want a tabletop miniature for your D&D game,
Yeah.
you would not print it with FDM. And you can go buy the models and all that, but they're expensive and somewhat hard to find. So this you can print what you want.
All right. And tell me the differences between resin versus filament. So the filament is a hard plastic spooled up into a wheel.
Yeah.
And then it melts in a nozzle, and then nozzle moves to coordinates, and you have a print at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That cools down. How does the resin work?
It works in a liquid format to start off with. So you fill a vat on the resin printer with your liquid resin,
Yeah.
and then what the printer does then, it UV cures layer by layer. So it cures it using UV light.
All right.
So it's layer per layer. Doesn't matter how much of that layer is used to print, doesn't change the time whatsoever.
So you could print, let's say you print one box. To print 10 of the same boxes at once will take the same time.
Yeah. So, for instance, this small model. Printing one of these will take the same amount of time as printing 10 of them on the same
bed.
yeah.
On the vat, if we could say.
Well, yeah, within the vat, on the bed.
And I mean, with 3D prints, you get layer lines.
Yeah.
I don't see any layer lines on resin prints.
If you look really nicely, you can.
So they're small.
Yeah, they're 50. These are printed at 30 nanometers.
So that's a much more better surface finish.
Yeah.
All right, no, that's really nice. Tell me about the resin itself. So it's not just any resin.
No, it's normal resins, how you might know it, would be a two-part situation. So you have, most of them are liquids. I think all of them are liquids, but you'll have an activator. In this case, the activator is the UV light. So you won't be able to leave resin outside per se. It'll cure and become hard.
Okay.
So in the liquid format, that's how these resins work.
All right, and how does the slices work? I personally don't know much about resin printing. I didn't even know it was a thing until I started working. I only knew about the FDM. I thought that was 3D printing.
Yeah.
So I don't know much about resin printing. So I'm going to ask you a lot of questions.
All right.
Feel free to give me, everyone, a bunch of detail. But how does the slices work?
They work very similar to the standard slices. The process isn't that much different. You'll drop in your model, orientate it the optimal way you see fit, and then support it. However, in standard slices, your support, more often than not, you'll do it automatically.
Yeah.
Manual support, you place a post, and in the end, it's like a zigzag situation, supporting like a big. This all over here would have been supported on a standard printer.
All right, so the angles are much more lenient.
Yeah. On a resin printer, if you're thinking of it upside down, as you print down, the parts that are not connected to the model on that layer,
Yeah.
that you would need to support. Just the island and then maybe some more for stability reasons. But the support structure is much finer and there's less of it in resin printing.
All right. Now,
That's the only real difference in the slices.
you told me about a type of resin or a type of something where the supports were a different type of resin that dissolved or something like that.
No, that's on FDM side, you can do that.
On the
resin,
FDM side?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's nothing like that in resin where you can dissolve the
I
supports
thought
away.
it was a resin printer.
Yeah, what I think I talked about was the casting resins,
Yeah.
where it essentially becomes a wax mod.
Okay.
Then you can put that inside a different molding solution and burn out the model to leave a proper mold. Like jewelers will use
Okay.
casting resins for a, what do they call it? Investment casting.
Investment cost.
Investment casting.
All right. And can you think of any other type applications that resin printing has? Resin printing is obviously a lot more accurate,
Yeah,
a lot more finer.
yeah.
What other applications are there?
Other applications I see is stuff like keycaps. Maybe you can print your
Like
jewelry.
keyboard keys?
Yeah, like mechanical keycaps.
Okay.
You can replace them with a resin printed
And
model.
you can do some really wacky ones.
really wacky stuff with that. Yeah, like I could turn this into a keycap,
All right.
which is kind of cool.
That would be pretty cool. Flexible resin.
Yes,
So there is a flexible resin.
yes.
And how does that work? How flexible is it? Can I make a model, then I can bend the guy's arms or...
Essentially, it's very flexible. It's
Alright.
almost if you're using just the flexible resin, it's very floppy. It's super flexible, but it was designed to mix with Monocure's rapid resin, so
Okay.
you can fine-tune the amount of flexibility you want.
Okay, so you can make it either super flexible,
Yeah,
or the more of the monocure that you mix into it, it'll become more rigid.
yeah.
Okay.
So the idea is a normal Monicure resin with a little bit of flexible will make it a little stronger.
All right. Now, resin printers, how it works, to my understanding, is that it prints upside down.
Yeah.
And you have a bowl. They call it a vat, but essentially it's a bowl that you pour the resin into, and that bed moves inside that bowl as it goes up, as
Yeah.
it prints. The resin that is left over inside of that vat, can you reuse it?
Yes, it's not compromised whatsoever.
So if there's little pieces and chunks inside there, you just sieve that out, and
Yeah.
then that resin you can put back in the bottle.
Yeah, and then
So-
reuse it another day.
Is resin printing then more economical?
Not really. It'll have the same roughly percent if you'll be using supports. It won't have as much wastage as FDM, depending on model, but it's about the same. Where if you were to print a model supportless,
Mhm.
it's waste. There's no waste really.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. And colors, right? So you mentioned something the other day about you get like a standard white or a standard resin, and then you can get dyes.
Yeah.
How does that work?
You literally take, if you would like a opaque color, you'll take a white,
Yeah,
and then it's literally drop in
just a few drops.
concentrated color dye. Yeah, just a couple of drops and you'll get a color. If you want a little bit stronger, more drops. If you want it slightly see-through, you'll grab a clear and tint that.
Okay. All right. And tell me about sizing. So resin printings can obviously go really, really small.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing that I'm holding here, this figure's hands are balls with spikes on it, and these spikes are clear as day.
Yeah.
How small can a resin printer go? Let's say we want to print a face and get all the details of the eyes, the cheekbones, the nose. How small could you go on a face?
You could probably go down to, how big is this? Because this has that detail.
That actually does have.
You can go down to like 4 millimeters around the head.
And how that is insanely small. How big could you do this with this much detail on FDM?
You'll realistically have to look at 3-4 times the size.
Sure.
So this model with the same amount of detail would probably need to be this tall.
That is incredibly significant amount of difference. All right, tell me, I recently had to do a promotional video for the Monocure Tough Resin. And I did a nice video on our social media. It's on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter about how tough is 3D printing resin. And I went into the wilderness, into the jungles of South Africa, and I clipped a little bottle to a backpack. That's essentially what I did.
Yeah.
How strong can resin 3D printing be?
Generally, until I had the tough resin, wasn't that strong. It doesn't deal well with flexing. So it can take quite a bit of compression, but it won't flex so much.
All right.
The tough resin works around that a little bit. It does have a little bit of give. And with that carabiner that I printed for you,
Yeah.
it was able to pick up an Ender 3.
Sure.
So it was...
How much does the Ender 3 weigh? About like 6 kilograms?
Yeah, it's probably around 6 to 8 kilos.
Sure, that's
I didn't try anything heavier, but it did that with no issue.
So when I did that video, the other idea was to pull a car with it. Now, we didn't want to, because then if it worked, people would think, no, you can tow cars with this. And we didn't want that's dangerous. But I hooked that thing right up to a tow bar, and it snapped on the first pull. So it wasn't that strong, but a car is heavy.
Yeah. It would. So, I didn't think it would be that strong.
Well, you have to test the limits.
You can probably get it there if you printed it substantial enough, big enough, thick enough.
FDM printers have infills.
Yeah.
And I did not know until recently that you get either hollow or solid, or how does it work?
So any model you drop into your slicer, you have the ability to hollow it out. So depending on what the model is, you might not want to do this, but you can hollow it out and give it a wall thickness. Okay. So say you give it a 2 mil wall thickness, then you can leave it a hollow, or you can infill it. I've never really seen the purpose much of the infill, but you can infill it like a standard FDM, where the inside is almost a crystalline structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like almost like FDM's tree supports.
Almost. It'll look kind of like a bunch of... It's a lattice structure, that's the word. Lattice. So it's just a bunch of like rods crossing each other on the inside.
Okay, so it's like a crane's arms, there's beams for structural support. Yeah, it kind of looks like that.
It'll look like that on the inside.
All right. Tell me about... Let's talk about the different colors of resin. So with FDM printers, we have ABS, PLA, PETG, we have red, blue, white. Yeah. We have crystals, we have aluminium-like, we have gold-like, silk-like. Do you get anything like that for resins?
Resins generally are more... There's more grays and blacks on the market than there are colors.
Yeah, like here we do have two different types of gray. Well, this is the same.
That's the same.
In the light, it looked a bit lighter. Yeah. I've seen the lighter gray, but this gray is really, really nice.
Yeah, this gray is really, really nice.
All right, and then what other types do we sell?
We sell Monocure and Cubics. So in Monocure, there's a couple of colors. Like there's red, blue, green. That's about it for the colors. Then it's black, gray, a dark gray, and a white and a clear.
Okay.
Monocure, we've only got the clear, a black, a gray, and a white.
All right. And okay, so 3D printers in general, there's mainly two types of people who will buy it. One is people who want to make toys.
Yeah.
And the other type of people is someone who thinks that, no, I'm going to buy this printer and I'm going to design stuff, sell stuff, and make money. Where would a resin printer differ in making money to an FDM printer?
It'll be in what you print. FDM, you can print brackets and mounts and stuff that will last.
Okay.
Resin printing, being it's brittle, it'll chip. You can't realistically, until tough now. Tough might change the game a bit.
Okay.
With the stronger resins, where you'll be able to print a finished looking bracket. So if they come to the point where it will be strong enough, then yeah, you can go into the bracketry and mount and call useful stuff.
All right. So not just any figures anymore.
It
You can
won't-
actually do
Yeah,
functional parts.
yeah,
All right. And you have a resin printer.
yeah.
So do you have an FDM printer?
I do, but it's out of commission.
Okay. So you have a resin printer. What do you do with it?
I print small resin keycaps for my printer, for my keyboard. That's the
Okay.
new thing I've gotten into.
No, you were talking about a long time for doing something like that. We actually spoke just a couple minutes ago before we started recording about you printing for model shops, just some stuff. You have some ideas to do for that. I'm not going to give away your grand
No, but
ideas.
that would be an
It would be
interesting
something
market to get
nice,
into,
and
yeah.
I think it's a very, very small, unique market. So,
Yeah.
for example, people who want to buy luxury cars.
Yeah.
So there will be a very few people who will buy it, but the people who do have the money to do it, and that's nice.
Yeah.
All right, Dylan, is there anything else? Any kind of, when you want to print a resin printer, anything that you look out for, tips and tricks? What's the most important part?
It's really just keeping everything clean and supporting properly, making sure there's no unsupported islands essentially in the print, so that's gonna just stay behind then and get stuck to the vat, and then you'll have to empty everything and clean it up.
All right, all right. Layer exposure times is a thing that I've seen quite often.
Yeah.
How does that work?
That's one of the most important parts in resin printing, is how long you expose per layer.
Okay.
Safe bet for the older printers with the normal LCD screen still, 5 seconds.
Okay.
I've
so it's
seen
around
people
about
come in with 8-second layer lines, and it's just like, why? It's way too long.
way too long.
Yeah.
And what happens if you go too little, like 3 seconds, 2 seconds?
On those screens, yeah. So when you go too little, it'll either just not print, or it'll just cause a small bit of little cured particles in the vat,
Okay.
and that'll just float around, contaminate your model, or it'll be too small. Wall thickness will be too small compared to what it's supposed to be.
Okay. Now you say those screens. Is there another one?
Yes. So the older screens in resin printers, they were basically just your phone screen. It has the RGB factors and all that in it. They took long to cure. The new screens are monochrome screens, so they're on or off, black and white. That's it.
Okay.
So there's a lot less for the UV rays to physically get through to get to your resin.
All right.
Meaning
all
they
right.
can cure much faster, like
And
2 second layers.
2 seconds.
2 second layers.
2 seconds.
And that's still being safe.
All right. Then is there anything else that you want to say about anyone who wants to start resin printing or wants to buy a resin printer? They're thinking about it. Any advice for them?
Don't be scared.
All right.
Resin printing, people think it's this daunting process. You need to wear your gloves and keep your station clean, but other than that, it's really not that much more difficult than FDM printing. If anything, I think there's a lot less in a resin printer that can go wrong.
Okay. Okay. All right, Dylan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
We hope that you guys enjoyed the podcast today and the video. If you guys have any suggestions on any kind of topics that you would like us to talk about, anything that you want to see from us, any kind of changes that you want, you can email us at wesleyv@3dprintingstore.co.za, or you can leave a comment below on the YouTube channel or the SoundCloud channel, and we will love to hear everything that you guys have to say. We hope you have a great day and see you on the next one.
Cheers.